Revolusi digital dan disrupsi global yang tidak menentu membuat pendidikan yang kolaborasikan integrasi teknologi dan manajemen menjadi hal yang sangat dibutuhkan. Untuk mencapainya, tentu banyak tantangan dan tanggung jawab yang harus dilewati. Semakin tinggi karir, semakin besar tanggung jawab yang akan kita emban. Sehingga pada suatu titik akan muncul sebuah pertanyaan, sudah cukupkah kompetensi yang kita miliki? Karena ilmu selalu selaras dengan pendidikan dalam kehidupan.
Selamat datang di Departemen Manajemen Teknologi ITS. Departemen Manajemen Teknologi ITS menyelenggarakan program-program pendidikan untuk para profesional. Kita menawarkan 2 strata pendidikan. Yang pertama adalah pendidikan magister atau yang selama ini dikenal oleh masyarakat dengan program MMT. Yang kedua, kita juga menyelenggarakan program strata 3, program Doktor Manajemen Teknologi. Kedua program ini kita harapkan bisa memenuhi kebutuhan masyarakat untuk memperoleh pendidikan yang berkualitas dan sesuai dengan tuntutan kerja saat ini maupun tuntutan di masa yang akan datang. Dalam program MMT, kita membuka bidang-bidang yang baru dan merupakan bidang-bidang yang memang sangat banyak dibutuhkan di dunia kerja. Seperti yang pertama, bidang keahlian supply chain management. Kemudian yang kedua, bidang keahlian business analytics. Dan yang ketiga, bidang keahlian design innovation management. Program MMT sendiri sebenarnya sudah berumur 24 tahun. Jadi sudah dimulai pada tahun 1996. Sudah menghasilkan lebih dari 2.100 lulusan. Lulusan-lulusan MMT ini tersebar di berbagai sektor industri dan banyak di antara mereka yang sudah memiliki posisi yang cukup strategis di organisasinya masing-masing.
MMT-ITS dengan program multidisiplinnya yang memadukan antara ilmu manajemen dan juga teknik. Jika waktu adalah permasalahan Anda dalam melanjutkan program pasca sarjana, MMT-ITS juga memiliki berbagai pilihan kelas. MMT-ITS akan mengasah kemampuan dalam bidang bisnis leading dan juga teknik menganalisa. Mahasiswa MMT-ITS sangat beragam, baik dari segi usia, latar belakang jurusan di jenjang sebelumnya, bahkan profesinya. Secara tidak langsung, hal ini akan menciptakan sebuah jaringan atau networking yang tentunya bisa dimanfaatkan oleh mahasiswanya. Perkembangan dan kemajuan teknologi yang sangat pesat tentu juga berpengaruh dalam dunia bisnis beberapa tahun terakhir. Selain itu, MMT-ITS juga menyediakan beberapa bidang keahlian yang jarang terdapat di perguruan tinggi lainnya. Pendidikan memang sangat penting. Dalam prosesnya, kita tidak hanya mendapatkan ilmu, networking, dan pengalaman, juga menjadi bagian berharga di dalamnya.
Kita tentu saja tetap berharap supaya program pendidikan yang kita sajikan ini adalah program pendidikan yang terbesar untuk program sejenis ini di Indonesia. Kedepan kita berharap banyak melakukan improvement dalam bidang proses belajar mengajar. Semester ini misalnya kita mulai mengundang cukup banyak dosen-dosen dari luar negeri untuk ikut di dalam proses belajar mengajar di program baik di MMT maupun di Doktor Manajemen Teknologi. Dengan demikian kita berharap menjadi program, salah satu program untuk kalangan profesional yang terbaik di Indonesia. Terima kasih.
MMT-ITS bisa membantu Anda untuk menjawab semua pertanyaan dalam menghadapi dunia yang semakin berkembang. Kesuksesan lahir dari sebuah proses. Jadi, apa yang Anda tunggu? MMT-ITS, Business Leader with Strong Analytical Skill.
Alright, selamat malam semuanya, saudara-saudara.
Selamat malam, Pak.
Okay, good evening and good morning to Sofia. I think it is still early morning in Mexico right now. This evening, guest from Mexico, which is the other part of the world. So it is exactly the opposite of the Indonesian time. So we are here 7 in the evening, but Sofia is there at 7 in the morning. So I think this evening we are having a very special guest lecture, because usually we invited a professor or someone from Indonesian companies to give a lecture. But now we are having quite different, young, energetic person, and also very much into analytics and supply chain management. So all students who are actually doing business analytics and supply chain management. Well, I see that it is more than 150 people are now already joining. And I think more will be coming later, and some others are joining via YouTube channels. So this is exciting. And let me introduce briefly about Sofia, and probably Sofia will add more about yourself later on. But I think it is very rare, because she's very young. She just graduated from university, and she got education from one of the best university in the US, probably in the world. So she did certificate in logistic and supply chain management, and she was graduated as one of the top 3 performers of her class in 2020. Whoa, this is wonderful, yeah. And she visited Singapore Management University and Köln Logistic University in Germany. She's working now as an industrial engineer, doing a lot of analytics project in the airport industry, and a lot of works related to benchmarking report and predictive analytics, and looking at the future market behavior. She's very active in spreading a message on the supply chain management. So probably she's a kind of a person who is representing the future professionals in business analytics as well as in supply chain management. So she spoke in a lot of events, like in radio, in podcasts, and also in TEDx. And she will be also speaking in World Supply Chain Forum in February 2021, where we organize. I'm sure she will bring a lot of insight, and probably also a kind of role model, I think, especially for young people who wish to work as a professional in supply chain management as well as in business analytics. So Sofia, we have around 1 hour and a half in total. So it is up to you how to use your time. So you can start with presenting your materials, and also then in students to ask questions. So now time is yours.
Hi everyone, or selamat, I think is how you say it.
Selamat malam.
Selamat malam, everyone. I'll try to learn more, but well, in Spanish you can say hola, which is, I think, very easy, right? Well, so yeah. Thanks a lot for inviting me for this lecture. I am so excited, and I love that you all have your background of the lecture. I don't have mine, but well, I think it's so nice. So let me just start sharing my screen. I would encourage everyone to have their cameras on. I think it's despite we're doing this virtually or online, I think it's better when we at least see our tiny faces on the screen and try to pretend that we're still having a human contact, right? So, well, let me just share my screen. Okay. So I hope everyone can see it now.
Yeah, it is in the process, so it's going to come soon. Yeah, we can see it now. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So first of all, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're going to discuss today, and it's basically trying to define what is analytics, right? And what if it's coded and separating that it can be applied everywhere. So just I'll introduce a little bit more about myself. So you can see on the map, I try to put the location pin exactly on top of my city. So it's Central West. It's a city called Guadalajara. And if you ever want to come visit, just let me know. Yeah, as Neoman said, we are like 12 hours behind you guys, so you are in the future. And well, so I studied in Tec de Monterrey, which is one of the biggest university here in Mexico, and it has several campuses around the country. So I studied industrial engineering, which is very focused on manufacturing and production. But later on, I discovered supply chain, which I think at the end, we are all embedded in it and we are all part of it. And at some point in our careers, we'll do a little bit about supply chain. And I've discovered a lot of people around the world that have dedicated now their lives to this field, from procurement, or even if they are also in manufacturing, distribution, and all the way to even analyzing consumer behavior, which is part of supply chain too. So those are some of the universities in which I had the opportunity, and I am very grateful for studying there. So if anyone later has any questions about the programs that I took or how, what opportunities are there, because at the end, there are a lot of opportunities that we sometimes don't know about, but we all can take them. So yeah, just let me know and I'll share the information with you guys. So well, in the screen, you can see one of my favorite phrases, I would say. It's from a philosopher here in Mexico. I tried to translate it to English. Perhaps some of the meaning will go not very directly, missed in translation, but it is basically having a perception of the world in which you allow others to be who they are, and then you can be with them or share that space that you created together. So it's part of inclusion and diversity, and also about your being conscious of your other, of their existence and their value. So I think it's very interesting. So I'll share a little bit more about myself. Well, my favorite food are someday you can try them, the real ones. My latest read is Lean In from Sheryl Sandberg. She's an executive from Facebook. So the book is about women empowerment and how we can grow in our careers and stop being afraid of what other people would think. So I think it's a really nice book. If you want, I can share also the link later on. My hobby was, or could be again, going to concerts. I love music and I love live music. And a fun fact about myself is that a long time ago, well, not that long, but I used to be a ballet. I did ballet for 5 years, I think. Okay, so now it's on, so you have no problem. Yeah. Let me share this screen. So as you can see, the question here is describe business analytics in one word, and you are all putting different kinds of words. We can see that the most common one is data. So let's see how many people. So we still have only 34 responses. I guess we're waiting for 160 more, but let's see. I love that a statistic is there. As you all are enrolled in this type of master, I think you know that it is very, very important. And in my career, I had like 5 different courses of statistics, and it's never ending. Okay, well, I think everyone is still connecting. So as the cloud grows, does anyone want to share their definition on business analytics? Please just write in the chat, and the first person that writes in the chat will have the word. So I think Nilur. Oh well, I will just pick someone. Citra, Judith, could you open your mic?
Yes.
Yeah. So how would you describe business analytics?
Okay, for me, business analytics is one of the approach that we can use the data mining or the anything that we have to achieve or to solve some decision to help us to find a good decision.
Perfect. Yes. So again, Citra is using the keyword that we have here, that it's data, which I really, really like. Thank you so much for your input. So we'll move to the next question. I know some of you couldn't put your input there, but you can start here. And now it is trying to describe what is supply chain, because we all know that it's a very broad field that includes so many different different other fields, right? Or different stages in the industry. I see someone in the chat put in word cloud in R and text mining. Yes, R is one of the tools. Okay, distribution, supply, demand, collaboration. Yes, it is all about collaboration. I think we've all learned about it when when COVID hit, right? Forecast, e-commerce. Flow. I don't know who put flow, but it's a very good word to describe supply chain. So, well, I'll just stop. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. I think we all get a bigger picture about it. So let's just continue. Okay. So again, you can see my screen, right? So I would like to challenge a little bit the idea that business analytics and supply chain analytics are completely separated. So when we were adding these words to the cloud and adding our inputs of what we think the definition of each one of it was, we found out that they are perhaps a little bit overlapped. But perhaps it's more than that. So I would like to say that it's all data analytics, and you just apply it to either business or to supply chain. Because at the end, or to any field, right? Because at the end, business, okay, well, it could be embedded in supply chain or the other way around, right? Supply chain could be embedded in business. So I think at the end, what you're doing is finding and collecting key inputs or key data that you later on will translate to a different information, right? It's not just about what you gather, but also what you understand and make from it. So that for me would be the simplest definition of data analytics. So I know you guys are planning a project in your class, and I would like to share, I would say, a roadmap for you to do an effective project. Because in the industry and when you start working, perhaps you get biased on the dynamics of your company or your industry, and you forget the basic steps of achieving a great project or doing a great project. And one of it is, first of all, defining an objective. You cannot just go and keep putting fires out and reacting to a situation just because if you don't have a meaning. So I think in life, we should all have a purpose defined and a meaning. Then you have to specify the data requirements. What is it that you really need? Sometimes we say, okay, I'm gonna do a project on analytics in supply chain, and you think that you should model the whole supply chain, right? From I don't know, from the growth of corn all the way to how the corn is distributed in the supermarket, right? Or you buy it there. And sometimes that is not necessary. So you have to define the level of detail in which you want to focus, and also define the type of data that you need for achieving your goal. So later on, we see that after you have all this defined, you go ahead and analyze what you've collected or the information that you have. how do you analyze it? Well, there are many tools and many methodologies that you could apply. And you have to have a clear mindset of what is it that you want to prove and how you want to prove it, right? So sometimes we'll get confused about, okay, well, I'm doing a simulation and at the end, I think that I have a result on the optimal solution. Well, no, that's not the case. When you're simulating, you are evaluating performance, not the optimal solution or the best solution. You can certainly use both and match these two types of methodologies in order to achieve a better results from the project. So it all depends what we've said before, that is defining what you want to do and why. Later on, you have your results. Sometimes it's frustrating, but sometimes your initial hypothesis gets rejected because the data prove you wrong. And there is no shame, I would say, on that. You can still present your project and say, okay, well, we found out that there is actually no correlation between the two variables that we were measuring, right? And just find out why. Dig into it and present those results. Later on in your presentation, you have to be able to communicate what you've learned about all these process and what you've, so if in this case, your results weren't what you were expecting, then explain why. And make sure to connect with the audience that is listening to you or reading your paper, right? You have to be able to tell a story, which is a very, very important quality. So we'll just dig into these steps. So the first step, as I was mentioning, is having a clear objective. So sometimes we can not be sure of what to choose for a project or where to focus. So I would say, if I had to, well, from my experience, and I always try to go from the broader to the more specific topic. So I would choose an industry and then perhaps a supply chain stage. By stage, I mean, for example, focusing on sourcing and raw materials, or focusing on inbound transportation or outbound transportation, or the warehousing and distribution centers, or then focusing so just purely on the factory. Of course, you will have external factors, but if you choose perhaps on a specific stage, you can define a clearer objective and then discover that perhaps, okay, well, the factory is affected by the timeliness or the lead time in which the raw materials are coming in. But you'll figure that out when you are focused on analyzing the data from it. So after you choose a supply chain stage, I would say that it is important to see if there is a problem. What problem are you wanting to solve? So is it perhaps the traceability and visibility of your deep tier suppliers? Are they being socially responsible and caring for the environment or not? So if that is the problem, then dig into it and say, okay, well, I'm going to focus on this specific topic on visibility. Or, for example, if you're going into transportation, perhaps you see that routing is a problem. So when you are deciding which client to start first and deliver, perhaps you'll see that it is sometimes not the best the best order, right? Or you're taking too much time, or you could decide on starting a new sequence that allows you to better utilize the time and your resources. So those kinds of problems are the ones that you could focus on. And it can even be something that you can go out and see in your different sources of, for example, news and articles. See what's out there. What are the pains right now of the companies? So we all know, or perhaps we don't, but we for sure have an idea that peak season this year is going to be completely different, right? Because most of us are still working from home or still in lockdown, and certainly we have increased the demand of online shopping or e-commerce. So imagine what's going on with Amazon or Alibaba or Linio, I don't know, all of these companies that are struggling with fulfillment and delivering on time and keeping service levels. So read some articles, see what's the pain points that they are trying to solve and how are they trying to solve it, and say, okay, this is the problem that I'm gonna choose and that I'm gonna focus on for my project. Perhaps not on Amazon, but we can look for example, company that is a local company that serves your city. So well, moving on, you have to also, when you have your problem and when you have your objective defined, try to in advance, please in advance, not later, define the data that you need. So if you're seeing a problem in, for example, okay, let's go back to transportation, and you see that your problem is related to time, then perhaps you need to measure or have the data about distance, time, perhaps the model of your truck or vehicle, in order to see if it's a problem of the mode that you're choosing or not. You need to have also perhaps the cost of how much it costs you to move an object from one place to another. And well, you've defined these different types of data that you're collecting, and also you have the units in which you're measuring it, right? And we all hope that data is this picture, all nice and beautiful and ordered, and the reality is that it is most of the times a mess. And we can get very discouraged, I would say, when we see this type of scenario. But when you've decided, okay, yes, I'm gonna focus on the plant there, the lamp, and the computer, when you go and see this mess, you already know what you're looking for. So you don't get distracted by the other items in the picture. You just go and find it. And at the end, it's all about quality of data. You have to make sure that it is good. And it all comes again to the meaning that you're trying to search. So some ideas from where to get data. In an ideal world, the company that you choose, or the database that you're looking for, could be embedded in some of these systems. So if the shipment history sometimes it is allocated in your transportation management system, which is TMS, or also in your warehouse management. So you can find, for example, information about your modes of transportation, the sites from where you are starting your journeys, and the rate. So everything up related to how much it costs for you to move, for example, by train a distance of X number of kilometers. Later on, you can see the production history could be found in your warehouse management system or in your ERP system, which ERP is already a system that try to make a collaborative platform among different systems. So some companies already have in their ERPs, for example, their HR history as well, or their client information. So all of it is already in their ERP system. And so you could find information about product lines and see how they decide on how much to manufacture and of which types they're manufacturing. So yeah, it's interesting. Then your product master could be found also in your ERP, and you can also see the demand of it. You can also look at your sales history and look inside your customer relationship management system and find information of your customers. So this is the super ideal world, because sometimes the ERP system in a company is just a book based on paper, and you have to look it up manually, okay? So the records of the information are done manually, and sometimes it's difficult to access that information. So we go back to our data requirements, right? So is the data really accessible? Is it really kept in a way or stored in a way that I can truly trust it, right? If I know that all of the information is done manually and written down by different kind of employees, then I question, okay, is it really written in the good way, or do they keep track of it? Is it monitored? Is someone checking if this information is okay or not? So I'll give you an example. Whenever you go to an I don't know, like a wedding, you go and there's a registration book in which you can also add like a note for the event, right? How you spend the time. Some people do that. Some other people just sign it. Some others just write their name. Some spend a whole sheet writing like a letter. So perhaps when you open that book, you're expecting a congratulation message. But when you see it, you see that not all of those are congratulation messages. Some of them are signatures. Some of them are just names. Some of them are random notes that you don't understand. And you question, okay, can I use this book solely to see if there are only congratulation messages? Did anyone monitor who was writing on it? No, of course not. You were having fun at the wedding, right? So this type of collecting. So going to the third step, you have to analyze what you've collected and generate insights. That's your main objective. You can collect and have the biggest database in the world and use terabytes and terabytes of information, but they mean nothing if you cannot describe it, use it, and apply it. So first of all, you need to clean and prep your database. So and make sure that there are no typos, that there are no duplicates, that you are not uh, using the wrong data, that you misinterpret something. Some of the tools out there for you to do this, not in Excel, please don't do it in Excel, unless it's not that big of the not a lot of information. So then, okay, well, continue with your spreadsheet. But there are some tools out there that are for free, like Python, that you can use and that can simplify the amount of time that you're spending. Because I think so far, this is to be done easily. Next, you have to characterize the data. So if we all know about this, it's all about statistics and finding, describing what type of data you're dealing with. So perhaps trying to fit it into a distribution. Not all data is normal, we know that. So there are different distributions out there that could help us understand better the behavior of it. And in this step, you're also perhaps trying to, it's all very, very descriptive. So right now, you're not using it to make predictions or be or something like that. So you're just focusing on diagnosing what is going on. So you could also use time series or histograms to visualize it and say, okay, well, I see that the trend goes this way down or it goes up, and you're trying to describe what's going on. Also, you have to think about the data that you've retrieved. So for example, if it is the time between customers in a queuing line, well, you know the type of behavior and you can in advance think what kind of distribution could fit it best, right? So that's one type, or in another way, perhaps you are just measuring amounts, right? Volumes and production volumes or fulfillment volumes, and you'll see data are different from queuing data. And at the end, you have to act on whatever you've retrieved. And this is either deciding which methodology to use, right? The one that will help you prove or test your research question or problem that you've identified. This is, you could either go for optimization and see, okay, what is the optimal solution? Or what is the best that this scenario could give me, right? So you have to think that you are modeling a reality and see that, okay, well, with these assets and with these resources, I can achieve this much. And then you start playing with, okay, the distribution center. What if I decided to fly merchandise? And then you evaluate the performance again and see what's the best that you can achieve. So all these can be used with simulation and optimization. So you can do it both. But just remember that you get different results from each one of it. So later, I forgot to mention, but for statistics and fitting distributions, you could use that we were expecting did not happen, right? But well, they could. And you have to think about perhaps displaying your results and using dashboards to see how, I think it's a more visual way for you to look at what you've got. And yeah, at the end, it's identifying what is worth sharing. So sometimes there are results that are not meaningful or that are not worth sharing. So don't put them there, or don't spend that much energy or words describing them. Last step is storytelling, the ability for you to make others understand what your project was about, how did you achieve it, and what were the results. So in my experience, I would say that you have to be able to translate your results into money. Why money? Because at the end, that's how the world runs, and that's perhaps if you're selling this solution for a company, you have to be able to tell the executive level managers what's in it for them. Are you having a return of investment in X number of years? How much money will it take in the short run? What are your predictions for, I don't know, losing or winning money? And all of these, it's very important. So sometimes we are not, well, in my case, I was certainly not prepared when I got out of engineering, but there are so many courses out there for us to get into it and understand. So if you already have that background and experience in finance and economics, then it's great. If you don't, look for the way to communicate whatever you're doing into money. And then you have to decide how you're going to present your results. When I say how, it's not like, yeah, you're gonna do it on a PowerPoint slide, or yeah, you're gonna do it on a spreadsheet or a Word document or PDF. What I am talking about is perhaps the sequence and the way in which you're telling your story or your project, right? So we all know from books that it has a beginning, a climax, and an end. So that's the sort of way in which you have to frame the information you're presenting. So for example, okay, well, I started by viewing a tree and then this company and found out this problem. What we did is we gathered all this information from all these different sources with these resources because blah, blah, blah. We found out this, and our results prove that what we thought was aligned or not aligned with what we got. And then you move on to, okay, these are the conclusions we get from the project. And again, you can also go further on and say, okay, what we could do later on is this. And in that part is when you decide either to translate it to also money or not, if it's worth it or not. So well, so those are the 5 steps that I would say and recommend for a good project. So are there any questions so far? If so, write them on the chat and then I can give the word to someone for them to turn their microphone on.
Hi. Hi, Sofia.
Hi.
Yeah, my name is Arif, and yeah, it's interesting to see your presentation. Thank you. And the difficulties on the analytics is about the data. For example, for us for having like a thesis, the difficulties of the data. And it's interesting to see that how supply chains can be is more improved using the analytical, but how we can get data is the first problem. And if you say about the Amazon, but the Amazon is not open data, and some of the marketplaces is good to see how supply and demand, but all is the data is not open. It is closed within their marketplace. So how we can solve the issue about the data, because the problem and not the issue in the analytical, not only how to do the analytical, but how we can trying to see the problem, what is the how we can make more money using the supply and demand. So that is the how we can it's like practicing. So that is my question. Thank you before.
Thank you, Ari, for your question. I think we are connected because that's the next part of the presentation. So project, your first question is, where am I gonna get the data from, right? So how come I, as a student, I'm going to get all this information that I need if it's not open or for free out there, right? So, well, I like this question because now we can move on. So there are, I would say, 4 types of projects. If we categorize them in the way we get the information or the data from. So the first one is you start from 0 and you say, okay, I am collecting the data. So I'm going out there in the field. Another part is I'm partnering with a company. And it's all about time and trust and saying, okay, I'm pitching you, I'm doing a project, and this project perhaps is going to help you solve this problem, this thing, right? Or this problem. So it's hard, I know, but if you have a clear understanding of how you're going to solve the problem and what you're trying to prove, and you pitch it, then you can try and partner with the company. I'll go deeper into this. You can also go for a case study. So there are several case studies there with a lot of, not a lot, but with some sort of data. And what you could do is combine it with estimation and trying to base or have your information from for example, benchmarking, okay? You can also go for an open source database, but the only issue here would be the data integrity. So let me just show you some examples on each one of it. So the first one, starting from 0, it's, I would say, the hardest one, because you have to define the tools that you're gonna use to collect the data that you need. And it's all about the resources and people that you are able to gather and willing to spend. Because with resources, I'm not just talking about money. Sometimes you can find ways to save money, but I'm talking about time. It's very time consuming. So for example, if you are right now doing your master's and working, then perhaps you don't have time to go out there and collect the data, right? But it's all about partnering or getting a team and being able to convince that those people with you, perhaps for free or not, right? And later on, yeah, it's difficult, but I've done it, and yeah, it's very demanding. Later on, you have the other type that is partnering with a company, and I don't think it's that hard if you pitch it well, especially if you go to a local company or a smaller company. Obviously, I'm not telling you to go to us and say, hey, I'm gonna do a research project. Can I get the data from all your international shipments? No, of course not. But perhaps you can go with a transportation company, a 3PL, local one, Or you could go at least in my city, we have a lot of manufacturing centers, and some of them have a lot of issues that if you go and talk to someone and, okay, what is it that you are trying to solve or do better? I can help you because I can gather the information for you and provide you a solution for you. And then perhaps at the end, to give it for you for free, right? So it's a win-win situation. And that's the way you should frame it. The only thing that I would say is that when you're working with a company, you're subject to their ability and to their time and willingness, right? So sometimes they are not willing to give you a certain kind of information, or they hide. When you go into audit or interview processes of how process, everyone tries to hide what they're doing wrong. And they always tell you all the good things that they are doing. But what you want to know is the bad stuff, because that's what you want to solve. So it's a game of trust and getting the trust of the company with you in order for them to share what you really need. Sometimes there are companies that are very bureaucratic and hierarchical, so it will take time for you to really get to what you want. Into these projects, I will tell you about one project I did. This project was about urban policies and how they affect last mile delivery, or vice versa, how last mile delivery affects them, right? So we know that by 2050, UN estimates that 90% of the population will be urbanized. And so we found out, okay, well, how is this urbanization trend going to affect cities and the way in which traffic goes around it or within it? And at the end, how is this going to affect the last mile delivery, right? Because we go, when we go out and have time outside of our houses, we found out that traffic was terrible. Well, at least in Mexico, it's terrible. And what we see is that, oh, it's all the fault of the trucks. So we see a lot of trucks and it's their fault, because how come they're getting into these downtown roads that they were not supposed to be here, right? But it's all because with more people, you get higher demand, right? So at the end, all your Amazon wishes or all your all the food that you're consuming has to come from somewhere, and that's why you see more trucks. So what we found out, okay, well, let's check how can we improve this. And we thought, okay, well, perhaps it's about having or implementing the correct urban policies for a particular area in the city. So what we did is we talked to a lot of people, students mostly, university students, and convinced them to join our team for free in the exchange of experience, right, of a research project. And we collected the data. So at the end, we had a team of over 70 students, and we collected data in Mexico, in my city, in Ecuador, in Quito. So those were the two cities that we collected data from. And because we weren't that much of a group, of course, we didn't collect of the whole city, but just a particular street segment that was characterized by the amount of traffic it had. So that's what we did. And it was a whole experience, a lot of hours out there, because we wanted to replicate a day. You have to go and collect data from different days at different times for you to have a real sample and a meaningful sample for you to evaluate. At the first time, we found out some errors in how we were collecting data, so we fixed that, and then we went again. So at the end, at the bottom of this slide, you can see like methodology that we did. So obviously we previously defined the type of data that we were collecting. We didn't just go and say, okay, well, I think it's worth collecting the color of hair the driver was the driver of the truck had, right? No, we defined that, yeah, we're first seeing the points of sale that are in the street. Then we're seeing traffic flow and parking data, which means the type of vehicles going through the street in terms of size and model. And okay, partnering with a company. I worked for a retail company. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the company name or not, but just a hint, it is the biggest retailer in Mexico and Latin America. So you can Google it and then just see which company it is. But what we did was we were evaluating the distribution center performance and seeing what was our objective there was just to identify a problem, but the real cause of it. So the root cause of the problem. So I'll just play a video for you guys. So right here, the lady in front of the truck is dictating or saying the codes of each product out loud. So imagine if the TV code is 0147587, the guys there are checking that that is the actual code of the TV they're loading. And so on for each and every product. Is this optimal? Is this a good practice? Is this the best way in which you can load a truck? Are we taking a lot of time or not? So at the beginning, the answer to all these questions was no. Of course, we're doing it great because it works and we get things done at the end of the day. Yes, but you finish at, I don't know, if you start at 6 a.m. and you finish at 7 p.m., are you using your time correctly or not? So as I said before, partnering with the company, it is hard in terms of most of them are used to doing things in the way they always done things before because it works, and change is a threat. And you have to keep in mind that your project is not there to actually change them, and you have to transmit that. You're just evaluating and building proposals. So they could or could not take them, but you're not there to say or tell them what they are stuff. And that's your main pitch for them in order to gain their trust and make sure that they share the information that you need. So having allies. So for example, all these people here at the end, connected with them, and we woke up at the same time as they woke up, and we went to their job at the same time. They were there, were there and helping them and seeing how they were doing stuff, and just treat them as your teachers, as your professors, and learn from them. Be there to observe and learn, not to impose and change. You're not there yet, right? You're not part of that organization. So I think that's how you can approach this. Also, when you're in a university doing a research project, I think it's easier for you to justify the type of partnership that you want to build with the company, right? Because you have your university that has that supports you. So use that and pitch it to them if you want to work with a company and use their data. Obviously, everything has to be under protection of data and information, right? You cannot just go share all what they shared with you. Okay, next type of project. So a case study basis. As I said, you can go and read any case study out there. There are many open or for free in the network. You can also check. I bet that you've had case studies before in your university, in your master. So you can go and select one and say, okay, what else happened to this? And look for news articles about it. You will perhaps not find a database, like a complete database, but you could estimate accordingly. So if the problem in the case study was, for example, Coca-Cola, and it was, I don't know, about their SKUs and how COVID cases in Europe were rising and how we could determine or not if countries were deciding on implementing travel restrictions or not. So what we did was, okay, check the open source that you can check everywhere of the COVID cases per day in from X month to X month and see how they were or were not increasing per country, and see in another source that we have how many times was the word travel restrictions mentioned. So sometimes in the news or in the corporate presentations of a company, you see that they mentioned something about it. So we have this platform in which we can detect these type of mentions. Don't try to find correlations based on a simple graph like this, right? So that's what I challenge this project on, because how come we are just basing on an AI software that decides, okay, well, yes, this paper has travel restrictions. So perhaps the country, and also has the name of the country, perhaps those two are planning to have, I don't know, borders closed or lockdown, or so you have to go and find more about the information you're getting. So you cannot just say, okay, well, I see that there are less mentions of travel restrictions in September. Of course, there's not going to be travel restrictions for these countries. But you have to take into account that at the point we did this analysis, September was just beginning. So am I taking into consideration all the possible mentions that are there? Are taking into account mentions enough or not? So don't try to build correlations just on the display of information, but also go into the statistics of it and actually evaluate mathematically if it's correlated or not. The other thing with open source databases is that sometimes you cannot trust if they are legit or not. But you can double check in different sources. So that would be my advice. And yes, sometimes it's easier to do a project with open source because you get the accessibility that we were talking before. It's greater. So well, this is the end of our presentation. And I just want to thank you all for being very patient and being here and listening to it. I hope that some of it is valuable and that it will help you or guide you into your project. If you have any more questions, if you have just want to chat or know a little bit more about a certain topic, you can just contact me and say, okay, well, I just recommend if you're gonna send a LinkedIn. I was in the class of ITS campus and something like that, so I can get where I met you, right? So if there are any questions, yeah, go ahead and ask. Bye.
Hello, Sofia.
Hi, Ivana.
Hi, my name is Ivana. I want to ask, in the environment where we have got a lot of insights from data, let's assume that all data is clean and everything is already on the sequence, and we have a lot of insights that is very useful for our business in our organization, and we are very excited to do every of each insights, but there is always time and budget constraints. So what is your advice in prioritizing and which insights that that is actionable in the immediately or not? So that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, great question. Thank you. I would say that it all comes again to what was your objective at the beginning and what's most important to be done first. And then say, okay, well, I have this criteria that defines those insights. And then I just go ahead and put them all and see, okay, well, perhaps I'll just show this part. And also you can also put as an annex all the other results you got. But yeah, I'll encourage you to narrow your question and be more specific. I don't know if I answer, but yeah, that's my advice.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I add a question, Sofia?
Hi, Harrera.
Heru pribadi. So on your last mile study, is it possible that servicing to the customer it's much better using micro warehouses other than from DC, for example, from customer point of view?
So that's the thing. So we were just focusing on transportation and vehicles and not the distribution itself, right? So if our scope was bigger and we included distribution and we were trying to solve or focus on, okay, this type of distribution solution that is micro warehousing, or perhaps having a more distributed inventory across your supply chain in order to deliver faster, then yes, we would have considered those solutions or not. But what we were trying to see is that, okay, is determining, for example, designated parking for distribution vehicles a good way to improve traffic congestions in the city? Okay, then we check that, or we check if the other solution of off-hour deliveries, which is when everyone's asleep and you go and deliver at 3 a.m. in the morning, is this viable or not, right? So it all depends on what you're trying to model or to prove. Yep.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, Sofia.
Hi, Danny.
This is Danny speaking. Perhaps my question rather general, but I think we all know now that airline industry is being hit really hard by the current economic downturns due to COVID. Do you have insights on how supply chain analytics, I can say that, can help the industry in coming back to the previous state, even better maybe. So that's probably something that many of supply chain community is expecting or looking after now.
Yeah. So, so the main so so the main issue right now is that when your passenger traffic is reduced to the levels that we're seeing, most of your aircraft is being parked or being grounded for a very long period of time that never before was seen. So for example, you have an Airbus aircraft that is parked for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months, and the engine of it no longer works, or you have a lot of restrictions from international institutions that do not allow you to fly an aircraft that has been grounded for that long. So when you have less aircraft available, the available seats that you can provide to passengers gets decreased. So right now we have not yet felt the decrease in capacity of airlines, okay? Because we are not traveling. But when we start traveling again, we will see that the demand of travel is higher to the supply of seats. So prices will go up. Travel will be more expensive. And as an airline, I rather not buy more aircraft and sell it to you at a higher price and be the owner of the market share rather than to be a competitor. So the airlines that survive and that keep that stay in the market, those are the ones that will benefit in the future because they will sell you at a higher price. Now, we know that obviously I don't know if you've seen it, but most airlines have been diversifying their revenue streams. So they are not only focusing on travel and selling you a ticket in a plane, but they are also like Qantas Airways is selling athletic wear, like sportswear. Who else? Thai Airways is selling food and delivering it to your house. Singapore Airlines is having Michelin chefs inside of their planes, and you can go and have a dinner at one of their planes. So I believe that in order to survive and be the owner of the market in the future, what you need to do is diversify and also So start downsizing in such a way that you're more efficient in what you're spending and in the job that you're giving, and excelling at the service of your clients. So if you want to do a project in airlines, or I would go for evaluating the airlines that are doing all these changes and comparing them to the ones that are not doing and just staying the same, or the ones that are buying aircraft, because there are some companies that are buying aircraft. And check your research question could be how is diversifying to different revenue streams worth it or not. So yes, you can do a project there. Perhaps it wouldn't feel as connected to supply chain as you might think. But another thing that you could do is also check, for example, vaccine distribution. That is very related to, and they are playing a part. So, and that is part of diversification, right? Because you're looking at perhaps having a revenue